Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Ashley Martella. The House narrowly approves a campaign finance bill designed to counter a Supreme Court decision allowing business and labor groups to freely participate in election campaigns. The legislation calls for stricter campaign finance disclosures. Also, companies holding government contracts worth at least $10 million, corporations with a majority of foreign shareholders, and companies that receive taxpayer bailouts would not be allowed to participate in independent political activity. The fate of the so-called Disclose Act in the Senate is uncertain. Here to discuss it with us now is U.S. Chamber of Commerce Vice President for Government Affairs, Bruce Josten. Welcome to Newsmax, Bruce.
Thank you, Ashley. Pleasure to join you this morning.
We know the Chamber is one of the strongest opponents of this. Please explain why.
Well, we have just crossed a new Rubicon in terms of what a Congress does to the United States Constitution. The first paragraph in the Constitution states declaratively that Congress shall pass no law that abridges freedom of speech. We just had a Congress shred that part of the Constitution. They've now created, in effect, a multi-tiered law with respect to free speech. So large, big financial players, such as the National Rifle Association, are carved out of the bill. Organized labor, which notably was the single largest political spender in the 2008 elections, with some $420 million, who just in the past 3 weeks has announced their intentions to spend $150 million minimally in this election to protect incumbency, to quote them. They are carved out of the bill, no effect on them, no real disclosure, no real reporting requirements required of them. But it was more than just the business community that came out in opposition to this, which I think is the most notable aspect of it. You had groups ranging from the Sierra Club, PIRG, the Public Interest Research Group, the Chamber of Commerce, and more than 300 other business organizations. You had conservative citizens groups come out against this. You had the ACLU come out against this. So there's a rich mixture of strange bedfellows when you tamper with the Constitution that joined hands together, and the Alliance for Justice with another 45 liberal groups all came out against this bill. That should inform the American people quite a bit about the intent of this bill by the Democratic majority, who's racing to get this done before the elections.
Bradley Smith of the Center for Competitive Politics calls the bill a partisan power grab designed to mitigate heavy losses expected in the midterm election. Is that the way you see it?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt. This January, I should say, nationally syndicated columnist Dave Broder wrote about this. Had some interesting quotes from the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee Chairman, Chris Van Hollen, who is the principal author of the bill in the House. And Mr. Van Hollen made it very clear that the Democrats are anxious, as to quote him, to pass this as fast as they can before the elections, clearly to protect their incumbent majority because of the anti-incumbent mood across the country, which right now is probably at the highest peak since 1994. Senator Schumer, who most recently as well was the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee Chairman, no longer holds that post, but remains a member of the Senate leadership and therefore has the same interest and responsibility to grow their majority, is the principal author in the Senate. So I think first we have to recognize who the sponsors are. I think that gets to motives. I think Congressman Van Hollen's made it pretty clear what his motives are. Senator Schumer likewise said he wants to have a deterrent effect on the business community particularly. So, and he went further and said it should not be underestimated what his intentions are in that regard.
What do you think he means by the word deterrent?
Well, he wants to deter contributions from the business community because the only people that get outed right now are the business community. They cleverly put a threshold in the House bill of $600 and up for membership dues, if you will. In the Senate bill, it's $1,000 and up. The most important point about those thresholds is if you look at the largest 15 unions in the United States today, the average annual dues paid by an individual union member is less than $400. I think it's clear what's going on here. The House Democratic majority and the Senate Democratic majority in control in Congress are clearly trying to tilt the playing field in the middle of the game, racing and rushing to do it in a blatant partisan maneuver to protect their incumbency.
Okay, you mentioned the National Rifle Association being exempt before. What's going on there? How did that work out?
Well, the National Rifle Association made it very clear in January. Their president, Wayne LaPierre, issued a very public press statement calling the attempts of the Democratic majority in Congress to rewrite election laws and rush this bill through, that it was repugnant and unconstitutional. Somewhere between that January statement and getting called into the room by the leadership in the Democratic House, they made a decision, the NRA, that their main mission in life is to protect the Second Amendment of the Constitution, which is the right to have and bear arms. So they basically got carved out by committing that they would not oppose this legislation if such language were included in the bill. Congressman Van Hollen quickly drafted legislation that resulted in almost uniquely exempting the NRA from what we and others have publicly said it appeared it exempted two other organizations, the AARP and the Humane Society. It thereby disenfranchised again more than 100,000 other nonprofit organizations in the United States.
So protect the Second Amendment at the expense of the First.
Yeah, it was kind of, as I said before, guns and pets for all, but free speech for a limited few.
Chamber of Commerce Executive Vice President Bruce Josten, thanks so much for speaking with us here at Newsmax.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.